Well, good afternoon, everyone. I'm so excited to be here with you today. My name is Janice Malolo, the host of Stories That Inspire Us / the author series. And today I am so excited to have this chat with my author. You know, she is a very busy mom. And on top of it, she decided to write a book, and it's for 3 to 7-year-olds, but I'm going to let her tell the story behind the story because I think it's absolutely amazing. Without further ado, I want to welcome to the Stories podcast today, the amazing Marie Robert. Welcome.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Oh, you're so welcome. Now, as I said, you are an author, but you're also a speech pathologist.
I am.
You are a busy mom.
I am. I'm a mom of 3 little girls. Yeah.
Wow. And of course, I see a little picture in the background.
Yeah. Those are my 2 eldest when they were a little bit smaller.
Oh, wow. And I think that's so apropos that they are there with you, because your book, as I said, is really kind of geared to 3 to 7 years old, and it's called Georgia's Far Away Home. Can you
Georgia's
tell
Far
us?
Away Family.
Oh, I'm sorry. My apologies. I got the name a little mixed up. I do apologize for that. Can you tell us how that all started, like as busy as you are, and then wanting to write this book?
Absolutely. So a little bit of background is that when I was little, I lived in a diplomatic family. So my parents, I'm Irish. My father worked for the Irish Foreign Affairs, the Irish Department of Foreign Affairs. So we moved around quite a lot. So when I was little, I didn't always live in Ireland. I did sometimes, but not always. And so I lived far away from my family, from my grandparents, from my many, many, many aunties, uncles, and cousins. And I remember the effect of that when I was young and only getting to see them once a year because we were really, really far away. And that was, before sort of the internet. So we really were far. And then as I grew went to university, and after university I left and I went to Singapore, and I lived in Singapore for nearly 10 years, and I met my husband and I had my first 2 children. So I suddenly found myself with children who were in the same situation as I had been when I was a little girl, growing up very, very far away from all the family home in Europe. And eventually we moved home. We moved to France. So not quite my home, but my husband's home. Um, and I have always written for my children. I used to write when I was younger as well. But when I had children, I wrote for them, and I would write little stories, and then I would put them away once I'd read them to the kids. And I once wrote a story about a little girl whose family lived far away. And my eldest daughter, who was probably like maybe 6.5 or something at the time, her eyes opened real big when I read it to her, and she was like, "Wow, that little girl is just like us." And it was like this sort of little revelation. And I was like, well, yeah, that's the point, sweetie. It's about like me when I was little and like you. Um, and after that, I kind of got thinking about it, and I was like, I have always wanted to turn my stories into an actual book. And maybe this is the one that I should work on a little bit more. So I kind of got the idea from there, and I then started to work on it. Now the story that I ended up publishing is slightly different, but that's how Georgia's Faraway Family came about, and the fact that we do have faraway family, and so many families now, because I've always lived away. So many families have somebody who is far away. So I just thought, you know what? I never saw families like that in books when I was a little girl, and my children have never seen families like that in books now. So I thought, well, you know what? Somebody else's children family like theirs in their picture book as well. So I decided I would work on it, and I did.
Wow. And now how did your children, your girls, your 3 girls, how do they feel about their mom being a published author?
So, you would think they'd be like really proud. They're not, because I think children just think adults can do everything. So like, all the adults would say like, "Wow, are you," I mean, my children are quite young. The eldest has just turned 8. But they would say, "Oh, you proud of your mom?" And they'd be like, "Yeah, sort of." I think they just think that adults can do everything. So it doesn't really seem, I don't think they think it's that weird. For them, it's just kind of one of those things that adults can do. So they just do.
Oh my God, that's so adorable. But I guess I can't get over, and obviously I love to read and write, but I can't get over the fact that here you are pouring your heart and soul to this amazing book. You have this amazing conversation with your daughter. You read her this story, and was so mesmerized that, oh my God, like she related to that story. Did she
Yeah.
know it was your story before you read it to her?
Yeah, because they're used to hearing stories that I've written for them. I usually
Okay.
just write them for my children. But I think it was just that, do you know the way like children do? They have this thing about looking for people like themselves. I mean, humans do it in general. So, we like to see people that look like us on the page. They're always mesmerized if they see somebody who has the same name as them in their books.
Mm,
They like to see books about places that they've been. And this was kind of like that. It was that thing like, wow, she's like me and she's in a book. She's like a character and she's like me. So it was really one of those things that she identified with the girl in the story
mhm.
because her family was like that.
Wow. Now, of course, I know you have this in English format, and you also have it, there's another format, and
There is. So we obviously happen to be a bilingual family. We speak French and English at home. My children are fully bilingual, as is my husband. And I decided that in order to represent all our content, I would publish it in French as well. So
Mhm,
actually, the book exists. I mean, it's exactly the same book, huh? But with the same pictures and things like that. But I translated it. So I had some help for that because obviously it's not my native tongue. So that took a little bit of extra editing. But I did
mhm.
translate it myself. And then I obviously had it checked over several times. But I decided that it would sort of represent, since we were going for the our family vibe, that it would
Mm,
be nice. And we do live in France, so it was also that way of showing my children that both sides of the family would be represented by doing that. So it
wow.
was really, really important to me actually to have it in both our languages, since we are a bilingual family, we exist in a bilingual context. And also, even in work, I treat mostly bilingual children. So we're really steeped in it. So it was really, really important to me to do that. But it was an awful lot of extra work.
I was going to ask you about that because obviously you're again a busy mom. You work full time, and then writing your book has taken on a whole life of its own. The marketing aspect of it, and
Mm-hmm.
different parts that go together. I mean, that's a lot. And I know obviously that you love to write, as we've established. But was there ever a time, especially through the editing process, where you were maybe like, am I like, is this over my head? Is this too much? Am I putting too much on my plate? Because I think there's so many amazing stories out there that people could relate to exactly what you are going through as such a busy mom.
Yeah, I mean, I can't say that I ever had a moment like saying like, oh, maybe I should just stop this. I don't think I ever got to that point. I think probably a lot of parents are really good at carving out very small, efficient periods of time where you can do things. Um, so I have mastered that skill, I guess, like I said, as a lot of busy parents do. Um, and I didn't give myself a deadline specifically. So I think that helped. I gave myself sort of loose deadlines for each single task, but I didn't say like, okay, this has to be done and published by the 6th of February or something like that. Because I think, yeah, with life the way it is and 3 young children and a busy practice, I think that would have pushed me over the edge. Like then you would be more likely to give up. But I just kind of knew like I'm going to get this done. It's going to be not an immediate project, but sort of a long-term thing. I mean, there's also periods of time during publishing, especially in children's literature, where you have periods because the illustrations take quite a long time, especially if you have really good illustrations, because they do take time to make. And is excellent and obviously took time to do things. So you do end up with periods of time where you can work on, the other aspects, a little bit of marketing or a little bit of this or a little bit of that, while that's being done. So that
Okay.
helps as well.
That's so good to know, because I know that so many people I've heard, oh, I would love to write my book, and not just as a busy mom, but for other professionals out there that want to do this, like to take what you're saying and take it in strides, and not to give yourself very, very specific deadlines, but to carve out that time
Yeah,
as time permits.
exactly. And I think there's different kinds of people, and I think strict deadlines work for some people.
Mhm.
Um, but in this case, since I didn't have anything pressuring me, I mean, it was something I wanted to do. I was really invested in it, so I knew I would get there. So I think there wasn't really the need for, for a pressing deadline, and that worked for me because I have other pressing deadlines, for work and stuff. So
Mhm.
that worked for me. Like you said, I could fit the book around my life rather than having to fit my life around the book, which just wouldn't have been possible for me
Right.
personally. But again, I mean, the creative process will be so different for like so many people. I mean, there's no
Mhm.
one way.
Exactly. There is no one way. Now, are there things on the horizon as a follow-up to this book?
So I do have a couple of projects lined up, but they're not specifically follow-ups to this book. This book was really important for me. It's important for my children. It's been important for other people's children, which is really, really nice to hear. I've had a lot of people, say, my believe that this kid was like her. So that's really nice. But it really was designed as a one-time project. So the book is there. It's for families with people abroad or families abroad themselves, because it would work either way. It doesn't state where the little girl is living. I deliberately did that. She could be anywhere. But it
Mhm.
was designed, like I said, as this one thing. So there won't be a follow-up to Georgia's Faraway Family. But I do have two other little projects in the pipeline, which again I don't have deadlines for um, because life. But I hope to have another story go into illustration in November. I hope maybe end November because I haven't finished the translation for it. It's a different story, but for the same age range and with a different illustrator. I loved my first illustrator, but I don't want to do the same design. So I'm excited about that, and I have potentially a second other project that's kind of just in the very very beginnings of work. So I definitely got a taste for it. They do say publishing is a bit like getting tattoos. Get one, and then you're like, oh well, maybe I'll get another one.
It
So
absolutely is. And
so I definitely got a taste for it.
yeah, and it's so exciting because, you have this vision, and you went through the process. And I think the illustration part of it too is so key. And as a sidebar to that, how obviously I know that that was very important to you, but when you meet with an illustrator, how tough was that? Like, did you come into that meeting with kind of a little bit of a vision of what you wanted to see?
So not at all. I mean, I had contacted so many and gone through, and by the time I finally found one that I was like, you know what, this is it. And it was actually a completely, I mean, I loved her style, first of all. But then she read the story and she's like, oh my God, I'm like that too. So it turns out that Mariam, who illustrated the book, is Iranian but lives in Canada and spent large periods of time traveling around as a child as well. So she has most of her family living far away as well, just like Georgia in the story and just like us. I was like, oh, look, it's like serendipitous. So that was awesome. I felt like we were like soulmates or something. And but actually, the good thing for me is that she had more experience. I mean, this is my first time at the Derby,
Mhm.
so I didn't actually. I was like, look, this might be a bit weird, but I don't know what I want Georgia to look like. I don't know anything about this, so I actually gave her quite free reign to say, like, look,
Mhm.
draw this how you think it should look, and we'll go from there. And I have to say, she absolutely hit the nail right on the head. There was when I got the first draft, which is a very, very, very rough. You basically get like pencil, like stick pen, of like what would be in each page. And even at that point, there was very little. There was one full page that I was like, meh, this one I don't like. But apart from that, we were really changing details, not very large things. So this one, I really left it like really, really to her because I'm one of those people I can look at something and be like, wow, it's beautiful, but I couldn't necessarily like say beforehand what I would have liked to make it look
Mhm.
beautiful. So I was lucky in that I had her and that her vision really suited me. So that was really, really lucky for me, but great. And she was just wonderful to work with. She was really flexible. So that was great.
That is so good to hear, because obviously with that type of a book, the illustration really is key.
Yeah,
to-
I mean, people won't buy a children's book that they don't like the look of. I know they say don't judge a book by its cover, but let's face it, children do, and parents definitely do. I know I do. So it is really important that it matches not only the story, but that it is aesthetically pleasing.
Mhm.
Because people only, if they're buying it on Amazon, they just see the thumbnail.
Mhm.
So they have to be able to see the character, or they have to be able to see the important thing. And in their hands, it has to be, for children, the illustration is really, really key.
Now, how did you come up with the name Georgia?
So everybody asks me that, and I honestly don't have a good answer, which is really
Oh.
embarrassing. It's actually just a name I really like. I just picked it out of nowhere. It oddly, it doesn't. It's not even really a name that translates well into French. And people asked me, did I think I should possibly change it for the French edition, and I chose not to. It's pronounced Georgia in French, so it can be used, but it's not. But yeah, I actually just picked it because I liked it. I have no deeper meaning to it. I just really liked it.
And I love that, because, when it comes to you, it comes to you, and you have,
Exactly. That name just sort of hit me out of the blue.
wow. Now, in terms of, okay, now you've worked with the illustrator, you have the drafts. Now the color scheme, which we've all heard in the business world, like branding, but
Yeah.
also books have a branding process, which is really key too.
Yeah.
Did your
And that was
illustrator?
new to me as well.
Yeah, I mean, I've been working on mine for 3 years, and I finally finalized my colors for my VA business, a couple months ago, and I'm like, this is it. So when you're working in the context of, okay, illustration, now you have to start thinking colors. What came to you? Like, did you say, oh, maybe I like earth tones, or like, how did that part work? Because I think it's so key.
So that was kind of a talk that we had between Mariam and myself, and she said, "Okay, I have a color palette that I have been wanting to use, and I think it would match this." And I was like, "Okay, you can show me this, you can put the book and the illustrations into this color palette, but before you start, I do not want anything garish, because the story is quite soft, and the middle bit of it is kind of sad. Like, it's supposed to mirror children's strong emotions that they have
Mhm.
about their family and having to leave them behind when they're done visiting them in the other countries. So I was like, I don't. And a lot of children's books nowadays, I mean, a lot of them are bright and beautiful, but a lot of them have sort of florid colors. They're designed to draw the eye, and I deliberately did not want that. And again, Mariam kind of hit the ball out of the park and showed me this color scheme, which is actually kind of neutral, taupes and things like that. And I was like, oh my goodness, it's exactly what I wanted. Now, we did change Georgia's hair color, which was one of the things that was bugging me because it didn't match. And I was like, oh, I don't like her being, with this color hair. So we switched that, and it sort of rounded out the pictures. But again, I was very much guided by the illustrator there. It really was, thanks to her, that it looks as nice as it does.
Wow, I kind of feel like I am in the same boat as Georgia right now, because I got to do something with my hair color as a sidebar.
Don't
But
we all?
every now and then you got to throw in a funny there. And what I think is so unique about your book too is that not only do your children relate to the story, you relate to the story, your illustrator related to the story. And I kind of see this ripple effect continuing.
Yeah, it really,
How does
like I
that
said, a
mean?
lot of it was kind of serendipitous. I really felt like,
Yeah.
oh, you know what? Maybe I really was meant to write it. It must have been the story that I was finally meant to jump, to take the leap, because, like I said, I have wanted to do this for years.
Mhm.
It's just I just never took the leap. So I guess this story must have been the one that was meant for me to take the leap. And like I said, I do identify with it, but at the same time, it's not exactly autobiographical, because There are no places mentioned where Georgia herself lives. So I wanted it to be at least in some way flexible, where a child reading it who lived in America, or a child reading it who lived in France, or a child reading it who lives in Andalusia, or wherever the place is, that Georgia could be living in that place too, because it makes it easier for the children to sort of place themselves in that situation, because it doesn't say she's somewhere else. She could be where you are. So I think that it was important for me to find other ways where it could be relatable, not just for me and not just for my children, because I mean, then that wouldn't have been the point. I wanted to be relatable for children like mine. And there are millions of them now, third culture children, children like me, who might have half of their family where they are, and then the other half, because the world is so global. The world is so cosmopolitan now that there are more and more families like mine.
And isn't that amazing? And what I think is kind of unique is, obviously the holidays are coming up. We have, oh my gosh, Christmas. I mean, this would make such an amazing gift, Christmas gift, holiday gift, Hanukkah gift.
I'm definitely really hoping that people think that, because that would be really nice to know. I'm sure all authors get it, but definitely for the children's authors, it is so nice to think that some child is waking up on a special day like Christmas or their birthday or whatever, and reading and opening your book and reading it and getting something out of it, and that it's being read and enjoyed and related to. And Christmas, yeah, I mean, that would be a great bonus for me as well, to know that on those special holidays, where actually you will be visiting family, probably gifts between families, that kind of thing, that it's almost extra special, if it comes from faraway grandparents or faraway auntie or something like that. Yeah, it's a really nice idea.
Now, with the holidays, of course, coming up, will you be traveling?
Yes, we will. So because we have always been far away, we always do 2 weeks at Christmas, 1 week in France and in Ireland. So we will be in Ireland for the actual, it's everybody, each year it's different. So France gets Christmas one year and Ireland gets New Year's. And then the next year, Ireland gets Christmas and France gets New Year's. It's an awful lot of planning. So this year, Christmas will be in Ireland with my parents. My father has just retired, so until very recently, they were still very far away. So they have only just moved back to Ireland with my two lovely little nephews, because I'm the faraway auntie in this case, and my brother and sister and their families. So that will be Christmas, and then we'll come back to France and do the French side of the family for New Year's.
Oh my gosh, that is so wonderful. That is so wonderful. And your face is just like lighting up, which I love, because it's so exciting to chat about a project that you've worked so hard on, but that you have such passion for, knowing that, as you described it, I was kind of picturing in my mind, little children on their birthday or, Christmas morning, waking up, opening up their gift in Georgia's far away family, and they can so relate to that. I just think that's absolutely beautiful.
Yeah, I think it's extra special because obviously, I mean, families, especially families who are far away and who are spread out all over the world, it's one of those times where you would see them. I saw mine either at Christmas or in the summer. That's the only time I saw my grandparents, and that was when we were away. That was the way it was. So those are very, very special moments for children, and they're special for adults as well. But especially when you're forming that relationship with, for example, your grandparents, if you don't see them that often, it makes that bit sort of even more special.
I think that is so amazing. Marie, where can our viewers and listeners purchase a book? I know you had mentioned Amazon, but is it uploaded anywhere else?
So both copies, so both editions, the French and English edition. So the English is George's Faraway Family. The French is Georgia et sa famille autour du monde. They're both available on Amazon in paperback, and there are Kindle editions as well. If people have children who have e-readers, those are there as well. I actually do have hard copy editions, but they're special editions because they're printed in France. So I hold them here. It is possible to get them, especially for things like schools or libraries. because the hardback ones, they do tend to hold up better if they're going to be held by many, many, many little hands. And those ones, people can contact me by email if they do wish to have those ones. France has a really clever rule about sending literature. So postal charges are actually not that much sending literature outside of France. But the easiest way for, I think, most people is usually just to look it up on Amazon, and it's there.
Wonderful. And of course, I will make sure that that information is in the show notes. Oh my gosh, I can't wait to have a follow-up podcast with you to see where you are with your other projects, which, leads me into my next question. I hope that you will definitely consider coming back to the Stories That Inspire Us / the author series.
Oh, I would be more than honored. I would be more than honored if I get these other two up and rolling. I will definitely contact you next year.
Oh, I am so excited for you. This has been such an amazing podcast. I learned so much. I am so inspired by your process, how you described it. I'm also a published author myself. I just submitted my 17th co-authored project, and I am working on my own book. So I'm like truly inspired. So thank you so much. You have been amazing. I'm so excited about your book, but even more excited for the young children that will have that book in their hands. Absolutely.
Thank you. So kind.
You're so welcome. Everyone, this is one of those podcasts where I'm just going to straight up tell you, you have to go purchase this book because
thank you. Yes, please do.
It is amazing, but think of it in the hands of maybe your child or maybe your niece or nephew, whatever it may be, and how their face will lighten up and relate to that stories. I just think that's phenomenal. And finally, I just want to add, if you have a story that means somebody needs to hear it, don't forget to reach out. I would love to feature you on the author series with Stories That Inspire Us. Again, I want to thank my amazing guest, Marie. It's very late where she is right now, so I am so blessed and grateful that she stayed up to do this podcast with me. And today, I truly, truly was inspired by the amazing new published author, Marie Robert, and she is the author of the amazing book, Georgia's Far Away Family. My name is Janice Malillo, the host of Stories That Inspire Us / the author series. We will see you again real soon. Thank you so much, Marie. Thank you everyone for listening. We'll see you again. Bye.